But in general, of course, so Putin is going to get what's coming to him, because Victory Day has already been so thoroughly dragged through the mud by the special military operation, so thoroughly defiled by the repressions and by Putin himself, that it will never, ever be cleaned up by anyone. The filth has stuck to Victory Day for good. That's why any songs about victory today come across as idiocy and complicity in a crime. And one's attitude toward May 9th is, in a way, a kind of sanity test. Well, patriots need to come to terms with this fact and accept it with sadness, but without hysteria. And the thing is, this fatal mutation of May 9th will finally give free rein to those who, out of sympathy for all these Soviet losses, used to obscure the true picture, or at least the most realistic picture of the Stalinist army's involvement. And the gates of the archives will open, not just a crack, not just by a few centimeters, but will swing wide open, and the whole truth, the ugly truth about the occupation of Eastern Europe under the guise of liberation will become widely accessible and known. Well, it must be said that the Stalinist troops behaved on the so-called liberated territories no better than the Hitlerite ones. They did pretty much the same things as the Reich's dogs did. There was no fundamental difference between the two occupying hordes. And still, future generations, including Russians, if there are any, will have to deal with this global interpretation, according to which Russia is seen as the aggressor, a friend of Hitler, and an ally of Hitlerism for 2 years. Under that cover, it then occupied 8 Eastern European countries for 50 years. And this will happen. It will happen with the same inevitability as jeans replaced traditional Russian shirts and tunics. And no kind of isolation will save you from this. And if we are talking once again about the mass brutal rapes of German women in Germany, this is no longer just speculation or something unbelievable. There are absolutely authoritative academic works by Gebhardt and Barbara Johr titled "We Are Children of Violence." And that's one thing. Here, when it comes to the violence against German women, Russians somehow try to explain it as revenge for what the Nazis did on Soviet territory. But there have always been two polar images. There was the soldier, the hero, the kind liberator, the Stalinist soldier, and the vile creature in swastikas. That was the Nazi. But as it turned out, the behavior of Stalin's soldiers was no different from that of the Nazis. And it's absolutely fair to put an equal sign between them. And just pay attention. I'm not sure. Maybe not many people know this. Take Slovakia, which in general has always been Russia's little friend, cozying up to her, the city of Košice. And there, not so long ago, in front of a gathering of 30,000 believers, a new Saint Anna was officially beatified, in other words, essentially canonized. Anna Kolesarova. And the twist here is that this girl so desperately and bravely resisted being raped by Stalin's Soviet soldiers that they simply shot her on the spot. This happened in 1944. But even according to, well, you can never be sure of anything. But even according to official Soviet sources, chronicles, and the memoirs of veterans like Rabichev and his book, War Will Forgive Everything. This was a completely possible, even banal story for those days. And with Kolesarova, everything was straightforward. In 1944, after the Germans left the small town, the residents welcomed the Soviet liberators with pies, shots of vodka, and flowers. And Stalin's soldiers would accept a shot of vodka, break off a piece of pie, and immediately, of course, get down to business. And right before Kolesarova's eyes, women were raped and shot. The girl tried to run, but when the liberators with red stars caught her, she fought back so fiercely and desperately against an entire company who were already lined up with their pants down that they decided not to bother with her and simply shot her with a PPS. It's very easy to find this whole story, the story of her beatification and the official documents online. Look up Košice 1944, Anna Kolesárova. This happened during the process of being liberated from the vile Hitlerites by equally vile Stalinists. And I repeat, this wasn't in Germany, where the soldiers' rampage could somehow, well, be chalked up to the effect of Dachau, right? Where it could be explained by some kind of emotional shock, revenge for similar actions by the Nazis. All of this was happening in a completely fraternal country that was being liberated.